Welcome to Programming for Designers. This is Trish Ladd, WIP 400 Platt College. Programming Review Part 1. So this is all the stuff you learned in JavaScript, only this time with PHP. PHP and JavaScript are both object-capable languages and children of C. They do some things differently, but they do some things the same. Here we are going to focus on things that are similar, stuff like variables. Just like JavaScript, variables are reserved space for data. I liken them to assigned parking places in a parking lot. This space is reserved for top salesperson of the month. If I want to know who top salesperson of the month is, I can go to that spot and see whose car is there. Oh look, top salesperson of the month is John Smith. John's car is parked in the spot reserved for top salesperson. The server remembers and processes variables much in the same way that JavaScript variables are used in the browser. Any variable that is not assigned in a function has a global scope, and variables are lost after the page is processed. In other words, they do not follow the user from page to page. Variables have no default value. However, if you try to use the variable before a value is assigned, PHP will not fail. It will just use the value 0 if it expects a number or null if it expects a string. Variables are case sensitive, meaning that the server cares if a letter is uppercase or lowercase. In addition, variable names may contain letters, numbers, and underscores, but they must not start with a number. Every programming language handles values in a methodical way, called types. This allows numbers to be added, strings to be concatenated, database connections, and more. Let's look at what each type is and what they are used for. Remember, variables do not need to be assigned a type before using them. So we have integers, which are whole numbers, positive or negative, the simplest type. Doubles, also known as floats or floating point numbers. This is the type of number that is used in JavaScript. Booleans, true or false. True or false also corresponds to 1 or 0. Many possible uses of Boolean comparison statements. All variables can be evaluated for a true or false answer. The result depends on its type and value. Strings, or character sequences, basically a bunch of characters that can form words or anything that you want, not used for math operators. Arrays. This allows the programmer to group a bunch of different values together and index them by a number, or in the case of PHP, we can also use a key, and that is called an associated array. Objects, used for object-oriented programming, combine the elements of data and functions together, and then resources allow you to communicate with an external program outside of PHP. Null is also a data type. It has no value and it's empty. PHP has a loose data type, which means the same variable can have any given type at any given time, as seen on this slide. Here we have a variable and its current value is some string. On the next line, we reassign its value to 2, so it goes from being a string to being a number or an integer. Here, we reassign the value of variable and add to it 2.52. The value is 4.52. It is now a float or a double. Next line, we assign the value true to the variable and now it is a Boolean. Next, we assign the value of an array to the variable and now it is an array. Next, we assign the value of null to the variable and now it is null. A constant is an identifier or a name for a simple value. As the name suggests, that value cannot be changed during the execution of the script. A constant is case sensitive by default. By convention, constant identifiers are always uppercase. Constants are available in JavaScript, but we just never touched on them. Constants can't be overwritten or reassigned values, unlike regular variable. The name of a constant follows the same rules as any variable naming in PHP. A valid constant name starts with a letter or underscore followed by any number of letters, numbers, or underscores. Functions allow the coder to create reusable pieces of code that either compare bits of data or process the data and may return anything the coder wants as a result. Two kinds of functions are available in PHP. One is the built-in, which you can find many examples of at php.net, or the kind that we write, user-defined. Calling a function is as simple as stating the name of the function and any arguments that the function requires as per the example. Defining a function is similar to calling one, except the keyword function needs to go in front. After the parameters are listed in the parentheses, we can then open the code block with the curly braces. The instructions of what we want the computer to do goes inside the opening and closing curly braces. The keyword return. I like to think of the keyword return as a question asked and answered. In this case, we created a function that all it does is add 10 to a number that is stored in the number parameter. New number equals the function add 10, and I pass it the argument of my number, which current value is 6. I store that value, basically I pass the value of 6 here, gets stored in the variable number. It adds 10 to its value and returns that value to where it was called from, new number. So new number now has the value of 16. Modifying a function to accept outside variables or to change the values of outside variables can be done by using a global. Again, we have some number equal to 10. If we call the function add 5, it's going to go out to the global stage, get the value of some number, which is currently the value of 10, to reset the value of some number to add to itself, 5. Now the output of some number is 15. So let's check on your learning. What are the two kinds of functions? Built-in and user-defined. Built-in are pre-done functions that are part of the language. User-defined are what we write and are customized by us, as per our needs for our program. Variables created outside the function are accessible using which statement? Global. What statement should be added to the end of a function to allow you to work with values generated by the function? Return. So I said earlier that this was a review of many of the things that we learned in JavaScript, only with a PHP bent. That's still pretty much true, but now we are going to talk about something that is integral to PHP and not available in JavaScript, the include. Here you can see the 4 types of include functions. Each do the same thing, only slightly differently. They literally include the file in the location where you call it to be included. Using includes allows you to keep your code DRY. Dry is the principle of don't repeat yourself. Dry is about working smarter, not harder. When I learned includes, I never wrote duplicate navigation again. I wrote one navbar and included it on all of my pages. When I added another page to my site, I just needed to fix the navigation on one page rather than several. Includes are not only good for templating, like how WordPress separates parts of the page to recombine them together into a coherent whole, but they are also great for database connections, function files, and parsing forms, as you will see. Include will produce a warning if the file specified in the parentheses is not found. A require will kill the page if the file cannot be found where specified. Include once and require once do the same as their counterparts, but ensure that the code is not added to the same page more than once. This can easily happen by accident, and in the case of something like a functions file, can create errors, or in the case of a database connect file, duplicate data being inserted or the connection being refused by the database entirely. Here is an example of a templating system like WordPress. Here we have a header and a footer that is repeated on every page, but the main area may change its value depending on what comes back from the database. In this case, we are using a functions page that has a function in it called get_debt. We pass the function the name of the user and it returns a value of what is owed by that user. While we could write the function on the page itself, it is smarter to include the page that has the function so that we can use the function in multiple places on multiple pages. So in summary, we can use variables to store data to be displayed or processed and then displayed. Variables come in a wide variety of data types, and PHP has what is called loose data typing, which allows for us to change the type of variable after it has been declared. No variable has one set type. Constants are variables that, once defined, cannot be redefined. Functions are pieces of code that we can call whenever we want in order to use that same piece of code over and over again, keeping our programming dry. And this includes the use of include files that can help us with that too. We can create a complete page from multiple sources that can be used and reused over and over again. I hope this lecture has been informative, and I'll talk to you again in part 2. Happy coding!